The time has come for us to crown the winner of Big Brother Canada Season 12. It is between Anthony, Bailey, and Lexus. And let me just say, this finale did not disappoint me at all. Were you Team Lexus? Were you Team Bailey? Or were you Team Anthony? Let me know in the comment section down below. But before we get into this episode, I just want to say thank you guys for the support on the channel. You guys are fabulous. We are on our way to 900 subscribers. I've been saying that for a while now, but make sure we are hitting that subscribe button and getting it done. So without much further ado, let's get on with the video, shall we? So the episode started with the 3-part last HOH challenge. Who will become the final HOH of the series and secure themselves a place in the top 2? Well, we're about to find out. The first challenge was an Inside Out themed challenge. I gotta say, the production value on the challenges this season has been incredible. I've been really actually quite impressed. And this challenge, just like the rest of them, was another one of those where I was like, oh, this must be so time consuming, but also I would have an absolute blast doing it. I think it would actually be really, really entertaining if I wasn't fighting for my life with every single move I made in this game. The idea was they had to slide down a slide, grab balls, go up to where their stations were, roll them into the correct coloured hole, and then they just had to stack all of the same colours in their assigned holes. If they got a ball in the wrong hole, they had to press puberty, I think was the word that they used. And it essentially flushed all of the ones in that thing out in that sort of tube, and they had to start all over again. It actually seemed like a really tough challenge. I'm not going to lie. It looked like it would be hella fun to do, but also, I don't know, it just looked a little bit tough for my liking. It did seem like everyone was kind of like, how on earth do I do this? And then suddenly everyone got the same idea of how to do it. Start on one, complete it. Go on to the next one, complete it. And do it like that until you get all of them. Dougie actually managed to win the first this challenge, and I gotta say, I'm not surprised. He had a very, very good strategy from very early on. Bailey then kind of cottoned on to that strategy and started doing the same. Not sure what Lexus was doing, but I think she was doing the same. But Dougie definitely had the smartest strategy. He was also drying off the orbs before he rolled them, which meant that they were drier and they didn't slip and slide, which was good. So honestly, he's actually a lot stronger than people give him credit for, which is really, really good. I think he's a fantastic game player, but we're going to get more into his motives and his moves a little bit later. So up next we had the second part of the HOH challenge, which saw Lexus and Bailey face off against each other for the final spot in the final part of the HOH challenge. They had to do a challenge called Cape of Secrets, I think is what it was called, and they essentially they were given questions, then they had to stack answer cubes on top of like a spinning platform in order to answer the questions. Some of the questions were a lot harder than others, and I would have 100% struggled with, and some of them were a little bit easier. The first one was who was evicted on their first nomination. I thought that was quite an easy one. You've got Janine, you've got Donna, you've got, what's his face? Dennis, Matthew, and then Spicy V. Whereas everybody else was obviously nominated and evicted after their second or third or fourth. Some of the questions were a little bit ridiculous. Like, one of them was HOH competitions that were played on odd numbered days. And I was like, that is absolutely ridiculous. How is anybody going to get that? But it is what it is. Not really much you can do about it. Bailey actually smashed this challenge. Like, when I tell you I've been rooting for her most of the series. And this moment was genuinely when I was like, rah, actually, she might win this competition, because she was so quick with it. She knew all the answers. She did really well. Lexus, on the other hand, did have a little bit of a struggle, and it was a little bit of a struggle bus at times, but she still made it to the end relatively quickly, so I can't say I I can hold that against her. But that does mean that Lexus no longer gets to compete for the final HOH this season, meaning that somebody else has to take her to the final 2 in order for her to have a chance at winning. So let's move on to the third and final part of this HOH challenge. So, Anthony versus Bailey, the moment we've all been waiting for this entire series. Anthony, big game player. Bailey, big underdog. And now we're at the final 2 competing for this last HOH and a confirmed spot in the final 2. The challenge was basically questions about the jury, and it was ridiculous questions like, oh, how many of the jurors were evicted on a unanimous vote? How many were evicted on this? How many evicted on that? How many evicted another one of the jury members? It was just very much sort of like, oh my god, my brain really, really hurts and it's not catching up with what I'm thinking right now. They actually did manage to tie, which meant they went on to sudden death. And then they had to go into a tiebreaker because both of them were not letting up. And unfortunately, Bailey went over, meaning that Dougie automatically won the last HOH challenge. I think the last question was, how many days have the jury members sat up for nomination? And the answer was like 70 something. I would have gone for 40 something, just because 40 something is at least like almost 6 weeks. So yeah, I think I would have stuck around that number, but it is a shame that Bailey didn't win this final HOH, and it means that Anthony is confirmed in the top 2. But who's he gonna pick? Is he gonna pick Lexus, the person who he's been working very, very closely with this entire game, or is he gonna pick Bailey, the person that he's recently created an alliance with, but I don't know whether there's a lot of trust there? It's moments like this where I am not sure what is going through people's heads. Anthony is given the decision to pick between Lexus and Bailey. Lexus is the person that he has been working closest with throughout the game. Bailey is someone that he's been working close with, but not for the entire game. And I think that's now where this decision kind of threw me a little bit. I think Anthony has really misjudged how the rest of the house feels about these two, because he decided to go with Bailey, evicting Lexus from the house. Everybody was shook. Everyone was like, huh? What? And he basically said something along the lines of, you, Bailey, are going to give me the best chance of winning in the final 2. And I was like, huh? Because I don't know about you, but the jury's been talking non-stop about how much they love Bailey and how much they not dislike, but how much they don't think that you and Lexus have played as good a game. Ooh, I genuinely think Anthony may have just cost himself the competition in that exact moment. Because if he was up against Lexus, I genuinely do believe that she would have lost to Anthony and Anthony would have won. She went up to him, Lexus, and she went, it's fine, money over loyalty, and walked out. I was like, rah. And then when she was on the outside and she was like, I'm a graceful woman. And I was like, do you know what? Big up Lexus, because if that was me, the way I would have kicked up a fuss, I'd have been fuming. I would have been angry. I'd have been so upset the entire time. Yeah, you couldn't have done that to me, because I would have actually made your life hell. I would have just voted against you just for the sake of it. So we are on to some jury questions now. Jury questions are always my favourite part of the finale, because they really get to see what's going on in the final 2's heads, and also the jury members get their own back a little bit, which is kind of nice. Elijah asked Bailey what her biggest mistake was in the game and how she recovered from it. And Bailey was very open about the fact that her biggest mistake was trusting V for a lot of the game, and she recovered by letting her go. And even though that hurt her on an emotional, personal level, it was the best thing she possibly could have done for her game, because V being in the competition was actually dangerous for her in the nicest way possible. And even V was like, yeah, no, fair, fair, fair. Kayla asked Anthony, why should we trust you, seeing as though you turned your back on every single member of Hot Chocolate? And Anthony kind of put, I would have been silly to end up in a final 5 with Hot Chocolate, because I was the only guy in the group. And as for girls, the first person to get cut when it comes to final 5 would be me. And I couldn't have that. And I was like, okay, I get it, but also it doesn't really explain why you backstabbed them in the way that you did. You didn't have to lie and manipulate in order to get them out of the house. You could have just let other people do it. You didn't have to be the ringleader. Avery asked Bailey, what move in this game can you define as your own move? And basically, Bailey delivered another brilliant answer. She said, I was loyal to the people I wanted to. I was loyal to the girls. I was loyal to Todd. And I was loyal to Dougie when I knew it would benefit me later on in the game. I started this game disliking Dougie, knowing that if I went against him, I would be out of the house. So what did I do? I created an alliance with him. I made sure that I made it to the final 2 and secured my place in the finale. I was like, right, actually, a lot of this game I've been like, Bailey is kind of getting a little bit lucky, but when she lays out things like that, I was like, actually, she's played a very, very good game, and it's a lot better than I thought it would be. Tola also asked Bailey, why should Dougie lose? And her answer to this sealed her victory in my eyes. Sealed it. Because her answer was, in the game of chess, a king doesn't have to make many moves, but the queen is constantly moving, taking out players, and doing everything about the game. The king doesn't do much until he's put into a checkmate position. I was like, oh my god. When they start giving analogies and little like, ooh, spice, that's when I am like, yeah, you have to win. It's the same reason why on Big Brother 25, which didn't do very well on my channel, but we move, they basically had a final 2 of Matt and Jag, and Jag delivered the best final speech, detailing every single like play that got him to the end of the game. And I was like, actually, yeah, fair game, you win this. You win this, you have to. V was up next. She asked Anthony, why should I vote for trash? And he didn't really answer the question. He kind of justified his moves in the game rather than like, why should I vote for you? I don't feel like he answered that question. I feel like he answered a different one. So I wasn't that impressed with his answer. Then, obviously, Todd asked Anthony, what betrayal got you to this point? And Dougie was basically like, yo, it was V. It obviously hurt me, but it got me here, so I can't regret it. Because if I hadn't have taken her out then, she could have taken me out. And I was like, she's already said 3 times she was head of household. 3 times. And she never took a shot at you, even though everyone around her was telling her to. Does that not tell you something? The last question was from Lexus, and Lexus asked, yo, why would you evict me? And he basically said, I'm not perfect, but I decided to take the most beatable person in the top 4 to the final 2. And I was sitting there like, huh? Bailey is the most beatable person in the top 2. In the top 4, even. Have you even been paying attention to this game? You've made all of these big moves, but like, have you actually paid attention to the game? Because I don't think so. So, before they decided who would win, the jury that is, Bailey and Dougie got to deliver one final statement to them. Bailey explained her game plan perfectly. How she hung with the girls, how she had Todd, how she had Dougie. It was an interesting game plan, the way that she basically laid it all out. And then she said one statement that really stuck with me. I never changed myself for the game. I changed the game for myself. She was spitting poetry up there. I was like, madness, this is crazy. This is such a good finale. Such a great top 2. Then Dougie came on. He had a weaker speech just because it started off with a lot of emotional blackmail. Like, oh, my mum's going through a really hard time at the moment, which absolutely heartbreaking. I'm so sorry, Dougie. I lost my job before I came in here. Okay, right. I had to bury my best friend 10 days before this. Okay, right. Oh. Because now you're making me feel bad. Do you know what I mean? And I don't like that kind of emotional manipulation. Yeah, it just didn't come across very well to me. But then he was basically like, yo, I have been influential. I've been the most influential, the most powerful, and the most in control in this game. Reward the person who influenced the game. And I was like, again, he brings up good points. He makes a good point of the fact that this entire game, he has run from start to finish. But at the expense of the people who are going to be voting for him. It's, at this point, poor jury management. If he'd have just sat back a little bit in some of them, if he'd have maybe voted for Tola in that to gain a sympathy vote, if he'd have maybe not gone so hard against Kayla, if he hadn't have backstabbed Avery, if he hadn't have forced what's her face out the door, Lexus. If he'd have picked Bailey and he'd have made those 2 other moves, I reckon he could have won. I genuinely reckon he could have won, because he would have got Bailey's vote, he would have got Todd's vote probably, he would have got Tola, and he would have got Elijah. That's 4. That's all he needed to win. The other 3 girls, they didn't need to spite him. They could, but it would have made a difference. But instead, he took Bailey, and that proved to be fatal for him. So, Todd was Canada's favourite player. I'm not surprised. He was very entertaining throughout the series. He had so many great moments, and he was such a genuinely lovable person. But it is now time to find out who actually won. And it was pretty much a landslide. It was quite crazy. Elijah decided to vote for Anthony. Then Kayla decided to vote for Bailey. Avery decided to vote for Bailey. Tola shockingly decided to vote for Bailey. And then the nail in the coffin of Anthony's game was V voting for Bailey. And then obviously Lexus and Todd also both voted for Bailey as well. So it ended up in a 6-1 vote. Honestly, this season's been incredible. The fact that Bailey won was the icing on the cake. She was my favourite player from about week 2, week 3. And I'm just grateful that she won. I'm so happy. It made this season so memorable and exciting. And there were so many points in the series where so much crazy stuff happened. Like, I can't even describe it. I have tried to, but you can't just listen to me say it. You got to go and watch it because it is fantastic. But that is all we have time for today. I've got 1 or 2 more video ideas for this series before I put it to rest, so make sure you look out for them in the upcoming weeks. But until then, make sure to like this video, make sure to subscribe because we are on our way to our goal, and make sure to keep on watching and keep on ranting, obviously. So, without much further ado, see you later. Bye now.